Hey everyone, it's Johnny �𝐴𝐻𝐿, and in this video I'm going to be listening to the first album from Argentinian progressive rock band 𝐒𝐻𝐻𝐿. Luis Alberto Spinetta moved through a succession of excellent rock bands in the late 60s and early 70s, the first one being Almendra, who released their debut album in 1969, and you can see my first listen, reaction and review to that album with the link somewhere up here. His next group after Almendra split up was Pescado Rabioso. The famous album �𝐴𝐡𝐚𝐽𝐻𝐿 was released under this name in 1973, but it was more or less a solo album as I understand, and I love that album. After this, he went on to form the band we'll be talking about today, the progressive rock band 𝐒𝐻𝐻𝐿. In 1976, 𝐒𝐻𝐻𝐿 would make a prog rock album famous all over the world, El Jardín de los Presentes, which was the first Spinetta album I heard, and it's gone on to become one of my favorite albums of all time, one of the best progressive rock albums ever made, without a doubt. The songs of Luis Alberto are augmented on that album with grand arrangements and jazz musicianship, really taking them off into the stratosphere. And that album was recorded as a four-piece, with a very flashy jazz guitar player in the lineup. But today we're looking at the very first album 𝐒𝐻𝐻𝐿 recorded back in 1974 as a three-piece lineup, with all guitar being handled by Luis Alberto himself. So I'm very excited to hear this album. Since El Jardín de los Presentes has become such a special album to me, it's kind of crazy I haven't heard anything else from 𝐒𝐻𝐻𝐿 yet, so it's time to put that right today. Let's get started with the album. If you enjoy this video, please leave a like and subscribe for more like it. And now the first song is called Jugo de lúcuma.
Voy a extrañar una canción.
So that was the first song. And I really enjoyed the atmospheric opening at the very start. Straight away, you're being taken into another world, which is something I enjoy at the start of any great progressive rock album. And in the background of all this ambience, you can hear some very unusual chords being played, jazzy chords. And once the band comes in, the mood changes drastically. It all becomes a lot tighter, not so much reverb. The spaciness of El Jardín de los Presentes is not quite present here, it seems. At least in this song, we've only heard one song, but everything just sounds a lot drier and less in outer space, so to speak. But the jazzy chords are all there, the unexpected changes from part to part, and some excellent bluesy vocals from Luis Alberto. On to track 2, which is called El diluvio y la pasajera. Some lovely harmonies at the end there. Well, there's a lot to unpack with that song. That was an impressive one. How long was that? It was 8 minutes 42. It was kind of in two parts, that song. The first part was more acoustic based. It was just like a lot of bass still, but with acoustic guitar only on top. And it has that intimate mood that I've come to learn is a speciality of Luis Alberto. But things are kept musically interesting in this intimate opening by some very tricky acoustic guitar lines, but always grounded with this really heavy bass. The bass sound is huge. It seems to fill the whole space. That whole first part manages to have so much momentum despite there not being drums. But the drums do come in. In fact, in the middle of the song, there's this kind of changeover part where you seem to hear Spinetta moving over to his electric guitar. You hear them chatting a little bit as they're moving over, and they're going to start playing as a full band. And then once they start playing, they're doing this really sophisticated, bluesy, jazzy part. And the whole sound of the band starts panning from one side of the stereo spectrum to the other and back again, which was quite unusual to hear, but it sounded great. So that was a very memorable structure in that song. I enjoyed it very much. And all with the usual magic that Spinetta can make with his voice. The next song, track 3, is called Suspensión.
For me.
right, Suspensión. That was surprisingly heavy, wasn't it? It was basically a heavy metal riff at the very start. I was thinking, these guys have been listening to Black Sabbath. And then all of a sudden it goes into this super playful melodic verse section. But then they went back to the heavy metal section. It was a very interesting combination. And then there was halfway through that syncopated blues jam. It was kind of hard to catch the beat at first, and then drums came in and it was, oh, okay, that's what they're doing. But yeah, it sounded great. I wasn't expecting to hear hard rock on this one, but that's what we got. Well, this next song is track 4. It's called Tema de Elmo Lesto. Are we listening to Luis Alberto Spinetta or Jimi Hendrix? Yeah, wow. So that was like a psychedelic blues jam. It was only a short one, just 2:22. But yeah, I really liked the way he was using I think he was using the harmonics on the guitar to provide the kind of hook, the do-da. But yeah, it was basically just a Hendrix style jam. And I'm pretty impressed that Spinetta could pull it off so well. All those hammer-ons and pull-offs sounded great. So the next song is another epic by the looks of it, 8 minutes. And it's called Azafata del tren fantasma, the ghost train. Let's go. Wow, that was great. It had a bit of everything we've heard so far. We had the tricky acoustic guitar licks, we had the bluesy jamming, we had a bit of the almost heavy metal heaviness. Yeah, this song really had the spirit of prog insofar as mixing all the different styles, trying to make it work together. And it worked great in this song. I also really loved the stabs of vocals. It reminded me of Close to the Edge from Yes, if you know what I'm talking about. Great stuff. Well, we're on to the last main song on the album. It's called Irregular. That was great. That was perhaps my favorite on the album so far, on this first listen anyway. It was certainly the most memorable in terms of the vocals. Some of those vocals were epic, actually epic. And I felt that this song, more than any other, really points the way forward for �𝐿𝐿𝐵𝐵𝐵. I love all those jazzy chord changes that they use throughout it. Sounds really good. Anyway, that's the end of the LP. The original record ended there. But it seems the original record came with a bonus 7-inch, a bonus single, which contained 2 extra short songs. And they are included as part of the album now. So we'll continue and listen to those last 2 songs. So the next one, listed as track 7, is called 𝐿𝐿𝐵𝐵 del mandala. Okay, interesting. So that was a heavy one. Another pretty much heavy metal song, which I'm again very surprised to hear. And this time with some equally heavy, gritty lead vocals, which came off surprisingly well. I will say the song struck me as maybe slightly less creative than the stuff on the main album. Perhaps that's why they didn't include it. But nevertheless, it was a cool song. I liked some of the vocal harmonies in the middle. And it was memorable. You know, I'm not sure if it was a single like released on its own, but it probably would have made a good one. So that just leaves the last song, which has such a long title I can't read it here. Okay, it's called Lo que nos ocupa es esa abuela, la conciencia que regula el mundo. Here we go. Another catchy one. Actually, this might be the catchiest one of all. Very memorable. And once again, it was in the hard rock style, sounding like Deep Purple, maybe a bit of Thin Lizzy. But like the previous track, it was a bit less ambitious than what was on the main album. So again, it makes sense to me that these were put separately. But yeah, a cool track nevertheless. So that brings us to the end of the album. I guess I could have expected it, but I felt this album was something of a halfway point between what I've heard Spinetta doing on his earlier stuff like Almendra and the latest stuff that I've heard on El Jardín de los Presentes. It obviously still has that kind of rugged sound, a lot of blues. By the time of El Jardín, almost all the blues has been stripped away. It's just sophisticated jazz, prog, which I love. But there's also a lot to enjoy about this one. I mean, even with it still having that kind of rough edge in a lot of the tracks, there's still obviously a lot of ambition here. One of the greatest strengths of the album was its unpredictability. You never knew where it was going to go next. And that's something a lot of the best progressive rock does. It takes different styles, it puts them together, it tries to make something new and exciting out of them. And on a lot of these songs, they succeeded. Like I said earlier on, maybe there was some of the spacey magic I like on El Jardín not so present on this album, but the creativity is already there, the ambition is already there, and as always, Spinetta is writing great tunes and singing them with passion and conviction. So I loved this album. If you like this album, please leave a comment to let me know what you love about it and if you agree or disagree with the things I've said in this video. And if you enjoyed my reaction and review, you can support me by using the link in the description that says buy me a coffee. I'll really appreciate the support. It'll help me keep making these videos. So now we're going to go over to RateYourMusic.com, take a look at some of the comments there, see what people are saying about this album. Here we are on the Rate Your Music page for 𝐿𝐴𝐴, the band, and you can see their discography here. Obviously, El Jardín de los Presentes, being the legendary album it is, has a very high rating. The two other albums both have respectably high ratings, and I'm looking forward to hearing the second album, Durazno Sangrando, as well. I'll make a video about that at some point, no doubt. But let's take a look in here. So this is the album page for the self-titled debut album that we just heard. Has a 3.79, which makes it the 2,475 album of all time, which is not bad at all. And we go down to the track ratings. We can see the highest rated tracks are Suspensión and Azafata del tren fantasma. Now, I loved Azafata. That was an awesome track. I liked Suspensión as well, although maybe I was just a bit too taken aback by the almost heavy metal style of it at the time. I look forward to returning to it to try to get more into the actual songwriting around it, especially seeing it's such a popular track on the album. Now let's go down and take a look at some comments. So this fellow Blood Pump said, "It didn't grab me. Don't really got anything too interesting to say about it. By 74, there were a lot of other bands doing similar stuff and better. It ain't bad, but maybe falls sort of flat among the waves of other prog acts." Well, it's a fair enough opinion. I didn't feel that way though. I think something that's always going to make Spinetta albums stand out from the pack is Spinetta himself. His voice, his style of performing, his passion. In every project I've heard from him so far, it shines through. So it doesn't really matter what he's doing, it's going to sound great to me. And so I suppose coming at it from that perspective, I was able to just appreciate all the ambition, all the tricks of songwriting and playing on the album. I wasn't necessarily just comparing it to other prog acts. But I do think it's worth thinking about the fact that at the same time as this album came out, Yes were making Relay, Genesis were making The Lamb Lies Down, and those albums have left behind a lot of this kind of gritty blues rocking that this album still has in spades. I think that 𝐿𝐴𝐴 would catch up to those bands on El Jardín de los Presentes, but there was still so much to enjoy on this album. Still so many cool ideas, you know, really interesting production, and again, passionate performances. Fripperoni said, "This whole album is unbelievable, but Suspensión is beyond this world, holy shit." Once again, I have to say I must revisit that song. I mean, I know I did enjoy it, but I just, like I said, I was so taken aback by the unexpected genre that maybe I don't remember the actual tune so well. Black Earth said, "Lots of good riffs here." Yeah, that's true. It's more of a hard rock album than anything else I've heard from Spinetta. So it has a lot of those guitar riffs, a lot of great soloing, and yeah, closer to something like Jimi Hendrix, Deep Purple than progressive rock at times, but always with that ambition to push things further. I mean, you can hear that, it's obvious. So that's the end of this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'll appreciate any support you can give me with the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description. If you've enjoyed this video, please click the like button, and thank you very much for watching. Until next time, take it easy.